Could I start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Katerina Argyropoulou. I am Assistant Professor in Career Guidance and Career Decision Making at the Department of Educational Studies in the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens in Greece. And the title of my presentation is Sustainable Career Development, an experimental case study on exploring the impact of a dialogue intervention in Greek career counselors. In the new research area of the psychology of sustainability and sustainable development, and in the psychology of harmony and harmonization, the main objective of the counseling interventions is to improve people's quality of life and people's chances to enjoy decent and meaningful lives. This perspective reflects a primary intervention which emphasizes the importance of constructing a healthy life at both a personal and a professional level through timely interventions. These advanced counseling interventions can promote reflections and reflexivity on what constitutes actual sustainability for people, a concept that includes people's core goals, interests, and values. Hence, it is essential to enhance career counselor personal control over their professional development in order to respond to the considerable challenges and opportunities, of course, that global crises bring to the contemporary world of work. In the 21st century, the world of work is associated with multiple complexities and pertains to insecurity, instability, flexibility, and continuous change. Therefore, it is rather critical to design and implement preventive intervention that will safeguard individuals against repeated changes in work and life. In this context, the epistemological shift from the modern understanding of career development to postmodern assumptions has led by extension to the gradual move from quantitative to qualitative intervention, tools, and forms of assessment. The evolution of career theories grounded in adaptability, identity, and the self, the interlink of work and life, as well as in meaning and authenticity, reflect these transitions. For instance, career construction theory, self-construction theory, life construction theory, and life design reflect such dimensions. The psychology of sustainability and sustainable development moves beyond the traditional perspectives of green guidance. By adopting an intrapersonal approach, emphasizes the construction and connection of authentic meanings for people and therefore communities with their purposes across different spaces and time. The aim is to harmonize and the complexities related to individual environment, personal, social, organization, natural, promote flourishing of their talents and improve their well-being. This framework describes the meaningful construction processes from the past to the present and into the futures, based on reflexivity processes at the individual, social, organization, and natural levels. Fluid organization and liquid societies, work mobility and flexibility, technological advancements, and work digitalization are associated with broader contextual factors that create the need for pursuing sustainable careers. The research on sustainable careers reflects three futures. Firstly, providing opportunities for renewal as people may pause in order to rejuvenate, and secondly, being flexible and adaptable as their current knowledge and skills soon will be out of date. Finally, sustainable careers must include opportunity for integration across individualized spheres and experiences that create a sense of wholeness, completeness, and meaning. In this context, the definition of sustainable career is the sequences of an individual different career experiences reflected through a variety of patterns of continuity over time, crossing several social spaces and characterized by individual agency, herewith providing meaning to the individual. Taking into account the aforementioned context, the need for practical training of career counselors and career practitioners emerges. Practice needs to be reflective. This means that the curricula of career guidance and counseling degree programs need to place a high degree of importance on reflexivity. The NICE competences framework highlights that reflective practice is a growing requirement for many practitioners working in education, health, and the social services, and is a key aspect of professionalism. However, there is limited research evidence and few concrete references in relation to how reflexivity on the training and professionalization of career counselors and practitioners can be embedded in initial and continuous training in a practical way. The aim of the research study is to examine the process and contribution of the life construction dialogue intervention, Constructing My Future Purposeful Life, to career counselors' sustainable career development in terms of enhancing their reflexivity, self-awareness, and vision for the future chapters of their personal and professional lives via a group-based intervention. The study involved 60 career counselors enrolled in the training program Training Career Counselors in Designing and Development Contemporary Intervention based on narrative and reflective techniques during the academic year 2019-2020, delivered by the Department of Educational Studies of the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens in Greece. Participants were randomly assigned to the experimental or the control group. The experimental group, which received the group-based life construction dialogue intervention, Constructing My Future Purposeful Life, consisted of 33 career counselors and the control group of 27 career counselors who did not receive any form of intervention. The intervention comprised 4 days and was based on the audience methodology as described by Di Fabio and Murray. All participants completed the future career autobiography developed by Refus as narrative measure that assesses career intervention effectiveness and the Greek version of the Light Project reflexivity scale before and after the intervention. The life construction dialogue intervention, Constructing My Future Purposeful Life, aims to utilize the key metacompetencies of adaptability and identity and is articulated in 3 modules. The first module, that draws upon the career construction theory and the life construction theory, is composed of 2 exercises. The first exercise is the life design genogram, consists of the 2 genograms, the career construction genogram and the life construction genogram, followed by the career and the life motto of the father's and mother's line. Then the participant is invited to reflect and produce my career motto and my life motto. The second exercise, Me and the Future, aims to improve the metacompetence of adaptability and identity in relation to those 2 personal mottos. The second module, titled Self-Advising My Future Self, focuses on self-reflection, self-advising, guided meta-reflection, and reflexivity in order for the individual to identify and explain an authentic self. And the third module, called Constructing the Purposeful Self, invites the individual to unify him herself by connecting her different life experience from the past and the present and extending them to future projects in order to promote authentic intentionality and to continue and enhance reflexivity processes. The research hypothesis was that the experimental group will see increased changes in the reflexivity detected through the Greek version of the LIFE project reflexivity scale. As you can see, career counselors' authenticity was improved after the intervention, as well as their clarity projectuality, while the dimension of acquiescence that refers to career counselors' sense of conforming to and passively accepting values imposed on people by their society was decreased. Therefore, the career counselors who received the dialogue intervention Constructing a Future Purposeful Life improved their reflexivity in terms of promoting their authentic values, confining the sense of passively accepting values imposed by others, and promoting their clarity projectuality in relation to their future life career projects. As you can see, slide 10, there was statistically significant difference in the life project reflexivity scale between the experimental and the control group in relation to clarity projectuality. Specifically, the mean score of the experimental group was higher in comparison with the control group at a statistically significant level. In addition, the career counselor of the experimental group had a higher mean score in relation to authenticity and a lower mean score in relation to acquiescence in comparison with the control group, but not a statistically significant level. The research hypothesis was that there will be statistically significant differences in the themes relative to professional and personal areas detected through the future career autobiography between the counselors who received the group dialogue intervention and those who did not. The quantitative analysis showed statistically significant changes in FSA for 28 career counselors in the experimental group. The life construction dialogue intervention contributed to the career counselors' awareness of their future career personal life projects based on their authentic values and the meaning aligned with those values, instead of conforming to values imposed on them by the society. In addition, the career counselors' clarity about their career personal life projects was fostered, as they need to be aware of what they want to become in their next life chapters. The majority of the career counselors became more specific and clearer in terms of who they want to be in the future concerning occupational and personal roles, where they want to act in the future concerning occupational and personal setting, what they want to undertake concerning occupational and personal activities, and why concerning occupational and personal goals in relation to impact. The above mentioned results partially reflect our aspects concerning sustainable career development, namely a dynamic, continuing reflective process of enhancing the harmonization between individual subjective identity formation, encouraging individual personal growth and effective adaptability in liquid contexts, enhancing their social responsibility and authentic values, and promoting balance between life and career roles in terms of their future personal career life projects. These results also highlight some practical implications. As a result, career counselors' proactive behavior toward career adaptability and personal growth may protect and further enhance their own career sustainability. Furthermore, career practitioners should no longer rely on a single theoretical framework in order to address their various operational roles. Focus is required on a wide range of conceptual constructs and ideas that are more holistic, have a broader perspective, and emphasize human flexibility, adaptability, and lifelong learning. Therefore, the need for continuous professional development in contemporary intervention is necessary in order for career counselors to be active and effective as global changes and challenges diversify clients' needs and concerns. Through continuous learning, career counselors' professionalization is promoted, and the challenge of having obsolete knowledge and skills regarding sustainable careers is tackled. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was really interesting. I was wondering if I could see your references again. They were interesting. They went by quickly. I just wanted to check.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Katerina, I want to ask you a question. Thank you for your presentation. What do you think we can do in training or educating career counselors to help them learn to be reflexive?
I think in that program that we have done in the University of Athens is an extra program out of their postgraduate studies. We believe that the education concerning the education concerning narrative interventions like Savika's intervention, like Guichard, and the reflexivity concerning this intervention. Yes, and also the tools and the techniques of their intervention could reinforce them to be more reflective and to have contemporary knowledge in order to adapt this knowledge to career counseling process. We believe that is a program, an extra program out of their postgraduate studies in order to enforce them in lifelong learning.
Thank you.
Could I stop share the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I start the video?
Okay, we're just wondering if we should wait until half the hour. I just want to make sure that if there's any other questions for Katerina, or we'll start our next presentation. I don't see anything else in the chat, so I just want to welcome everyone. Mary McMahon, Roberta Borgen, and myself have pre-recorded our presentation because we are not, all of us were not able to attend at this time. So what we decided to do was to pre-record our presentation, but Mary and I will be live with you, and we would encourage you to post questions or comments in the chat during the presentation, because it is a 30-minute presentation, and we'll be happy to respond to your questions and comments as the video unfolds. So we're here, but we wanted to also include our colleague Roberta Borgen. So with that introduction, brief introduction, we'll turn now to the video, and we look forward to your questions and comments in the chat box. Thank you. You can start the video now, please. Hello, welcome friends and colleagues. We're very pleased that you chose to join our presentation at the 2021 IABG conference. Our session title today is Career Theories and Models at Work, Connecting Practice Points to Social Justice Advocacy. My name is Nancy Arthur. I'm joining you today from University of South Australia in Adelaide, and I'd like to welcome our co-presenters today, Mary McMahon from University of Queensland and Roberta Borgen from Life Strategies and the University of British Columbia. So in our presentation today, we'd like to outline a project that we hope will help you to connect theory and practice. So to go through our presentation today, we just chose to give very brief introductions because you have our bio information. But we'd like to begin by talking about our collaboration for the project that set the stage for the results that we're going to share today. The project led to another arm, which was a research project in which we analyzed the practice points from the theorists and writers of theories and models from 43 chapters. Today, we will focus on the preliminary results pertaining to social justice advocacy. We'll pose some reflection questions for you, and we look forward to joining you after this recorded presentation for live discussion. So I'm going to turn things over now to my colleague Roberta to go over the next few slides. Mary will come in next, and I'll see you later for a few slides during this presentation.
Wonderful. So I get the pleasure to talk about this collaboration. Many years ago now, we had started to think about how a lot of theories books are expressing an author or an editor's view of a theory or summary of a theory. And what we wanted to do was provide an opportunity for for theorists and developers of models to share their own voices, but in a very concise and accessible way. And so over many years and many IAVG conference gatherings, we spoke amongst the three of us and reached out to many authors around the world and pulled together a book that you see pictured in the top right corner, Career Theories and Models at Work, Ideas for Practice. We started out aiming for 30 chapters. It grew to 43 chapters. We had contributions from more than 60 authors from 9 different countries, and you can see the countries listed there. We reached out specifically to people that either were the original theorists or were working extensively in unique ways with a theory or a model. So people who could really speak to how we could put that theory into practice. And we gave them some pretty strict guidelines. So they had a little bit of opportunity to write about the theory. They had to situate it around a vignette or a case example, and then they had to apply that theory to the vignette or case example. And then we asked them to draw out some practice points. And that's what led later to the research questions that we'll share on the next slide. So we had thought about the common factors research that's been done for counseling. And we wondered, how do theories and models inform career practice? What are the concepts? What might be common factors across some of these career theories and models? What's in common across them? And what can we learn that would strengthen our approaches to practice? And so what we chose to do was look specifically at the practice points, essentially the key themes or the highlights that each of the authors wanted to draw our attention to at the end of their chapter. So on the next slide, you'll see that we had 296 practice points across all of the chapters in the book. And how we approached it was each of the three of us independently coded the practice points. And then what we did was shared our codes with each other. We then worked on coding some themes and some sub-themes that seemed to be surfacing across the chapters. We shared those themes and sub-themes and reached some agreement on what they were. And then we ended up with some preliminary results. As Nancy said, today our focus is going to be on the social justice piece of it, because social justice came out across many of the chapters. And so that will be the focus of the rest of the presentation today. So now I'll hand it over to Mary.
Thanks, Roberta. So Roberta's explained briefly our process of data analysis and how we coded the practice points. And I'm going to explain how we moved from the practice points towards the title of our presentation, which is about connecting practice points to social justice advocacy. So on this screen, you've got 4 examples of the sorts of practice points that authors presented in the book. And as you can see, some of them refer to the socio-political context of our work, which could impose forms of oppression or discrimination on clients and their opportunities, or alternatively, the socio-political context could provide enablers for career advancement. So we can see that idea of the socio-political context in some of those quotes there. But once we become aware of the socio-political context, some of the authors also, in the examples that they gave and in their practice points, talked about identifying vulnerable populations, people who are perhaps disadvantaged, discriminated against, oppressed on the basis of perhaps social, environmental, economic disadvantage. And so there could be these disadvantages as a result of the socio-political context, but also disadvantage as a result of physical client characteristics such as physical or mental disability. So we saw that those characteristics coming out in the practice points. And then if we take account of context, that helps us be aware of, and if we listen to the client's account of their own context, it helps us be aware of the different work contexts and the perspectives on work held by clients and also the people in our field. So quotes such as these and some more specific quotes indicated the advocacy that may be needed to advance the cause of individual clients, or at a broader level to advance conditions or improve workplaces. So that could mean advocacy by individual practitioners or advocacy using a collective voice. So we'll just go on to the next slide now, please. And so basically these quotes fell into 4 categories, which became sub-themes. And the 4 categories that we had of different quotes related to the nature of work, the socio-political context, vulnerable populations, and professional voices. So we were able to group the practice points under those particular categories. And really the nature of work had 4 particular aspects to it. One was work as a human right, and that came through strongly as counsellors needing to embrace the full scope of clients' work lives and realise that market work and care work has a place to play in people's lives. So market work is a sort of paid employment that people do. It comes from the work of Mary Sue Richardson, and care work is a sort of unpaid work that's perhaps done in families to look after children or elderly parents or partners. So the nature of work really drew attention to the work in its broadest context, and it was about helping to understand that for individual clients, but to help understand the nature of work as a human right because of what work enables us to do. It enables us to have a lifestyle, but importantly, work is also related to survival. And we know that the meaning of work in some settings and some socio-political contexts for some people is quite different. For some people, they are in privileged positions that have, rich lifestyles that enable them to have a range of experiences, whereas for others, it's more about survival and feeding themselves and their families. So really, work can be conceived on a continuum from self-determination, where people have choices to make, to just survival, where choice is limited and choice is about just getting by, if there is a choice. So self-determination had a couple of aspects to it, and one of those was actually in enabling clients to see how they could take steps forward in terms of their work, but also in the counselling process itself, how we let clients be somewhat self-directed in the counselling interviews and really begin where the client is and start with what they give you. So those points were really important, as was an awareness that some authors drew to the fact that many clients may not have volition. They may not have the capacity to determine what they're going to do and determine work that's meaningful or fulfilling. And a point that came through in a number of the practice points was the relationship between work and mental health, how important work is to mental health. If we don't have enough work, if we don't make enough money through our work, that can lead to mental health issues related to the struggle to work, but also the fact that mental health may impede some people's capacity to work. And so this was also another aspect of the sub-theme of the nature of work. So I'll hand over to Nancy now to take it a bit further with explaining the socio-political contexts.
Thanks very much, Mary and Roberta. So you'll see some overlap, which should happen really between some of our main theme of social justice advocacy and some of the sub-themes that we're presenting. So I want to add a few more comments about socio-political contexts that have already been introduced. Power is pervasive. Power is always part of our interpersonal relationships and part of the systems and organizations where we work. So many of our authors in their practice points wrote directly and indirectly about the influences of power in people's lives, that such power can lead to positions of privilege and an abundance of resources for some individuals, and disempower and disprivilege some individuals who do not have equitable access to educational or employment systems. Unfortunately, for many of the individuals that are served through guidance and career practices, their career issues are surface because of what goes on in the world around them. So we have to think about the importance of environment. We need to think about prevailing attitudes towards individuals and prevailing attitudes towards their career beliefs or their presenting issues. One of the key points that was raised by several of our authors was to directly address issues of discrimination. Discrimination is one form of oppression, but clients' narratives can often reveal stories of oppression, ways that they have found themselves limited in the world, the ways that they have been stigmatized, or the ways that they have faced multiple barriers or disadvantages. So in all of this, we have to think about how our clients presenting issues and their stories present issues not as something wrong with them internally, but rather how they are coping and how they were trying to navigate in a world of work that is not equitable and in and amongst many systems that do not avail equal resources across different individuals or diverse populations. If I go on to the next slide, we've used the term vulnerable populations, and I want to be explicit that we want to think about person first here and reposition that as populations or individuals who are socially disadvantaged. As I've mentioned, for many people do not have the same access to resources. That can be access to quality education, access to higher education, post-secondary education, or to even the provision of career services. Our authors talked about how individuals from some groups in our society are marginalized and socially disadvantaged. And that can be due to our socially prescribed identities, such as gender, such as socioeconomic status, whether people are racialized or through disabilities. In some of our case examples, we heard those in practice points. Authors wrote about the importance of recognizing how social disadvantage can impact people in inequitable ways. So what does this mean? Well, according to our authors, they identified in their practice points the importance of identifying such barriers that are systemically driven, that are socially driven by the ways that we position people in our society, to identify those and envelop those in terms of the approaches to practice. That may come through in forms of consciousness raising with individuals, or it may come through working not only directly with individual clients or groups or group interventions, but also addressing some of those barriers with or on behalf of clients. Now, I want to just pause there because I agree with one of our authors who underscored the importance of working in conjunction with individuals or communities to design appropriate levels of intervention. particularly when we're thinking about intervening on behalf. There can be safety issues, there can be cultural issues, and we want to make sure that we are engaging in appropriate allyship. So the levels of intervention might range from working directly with clients to surface within points from their narrative to shine a different light on how they might conceptualize their career issues, working to advocate directly with clients, helping them to mobilize their personal resources and strengths, or it might mean working to address systemic issues where you begin to see patterns and repeating kinds of issues that individuals are dealing with. And if we could make and engage in systemic change, people wouldn't have to have those kinds of situations in their lives. So this is a good segue, I think, over to Roberta, who might talk about individual and collective voices in our professions.
Thanks, Nancy. So we were really called through these practice points to do something about the inequities and the social injustices that come our way. And as Nancy said, it's really important that we not be imposing our agendas on our clients. We may be very touched by something and see themes occurring over and over, but our clients may not be ready for self-advocacy. So this isn't forcing them into that role, but it's partnering with them, and where it's expeditious or where it could be helpful, we can use our professional voices individually and collectively in order to change some of the systems that are disadvantaging the clients that we're working with and the general members of our societies. And so many of the authors spoke specifically about resources and asking us to ask the question, are our resources accessible? Do our resources in any way compound injustices or inequities that might already be happening? Do all of our clients have equal access to our resources? Or are some of them reserved for the privileged or the well-educated? And so they called us to ponder those questions and to look at the resources that we're using, the assessment tools, the courses, the educational programs, and ask questions like, do our clients see themselves represented in them? Are these culturally appropriate? Are they useful to be helping our clients address career issues and move to the next level? And if they're not, then why not? And what could we be doing differently in order to make sure that our resources are not a barrier to the services that we're trying to provide? But they said sometimes it goes beyond the individual. And sometimes what we need to do is unite our voices and work through our professional associations. I love that one of the authors called us to leverage our professional fees or our professional dues. We're paying to be members of associations, and let's work together to make those associations create some of the systemic changes that are needed and that we're looking for. But also professional associations can bring together opportunities, just like we have at this conference, to learn from each other, to listen differently, to recognize something that we might take for granted in our context, but would be incredibly big as a barrier to someone who might be coming from a different place. And so our professional associations can offer us incredible opportunities for professional development, for collaboration, which is exactly what led to this book and this project, but also as a place for learning and listening carefully. And then there was talk in some of the chapters in the practice points about going beyond even our own professions, working on interdisciplinary teams, partnering with others who may have different perspectives, learning from those different perspectives, perhaps coming up with new approaches to the work that we've been traditionally doing that maybe hasn't worked so well for some of our clients from different backgrounds. And so when you put the three of these together, there's things that we can do professionally at an individual level, assessing and changing the tools that we're using and creating new ones. But we can also be banding together as a profession and we can be banding together beyond our profession, interdisciplinary. So this theme was very, very rich and repeated across many of the chapters, giving us some guidance about what to do with those voices we have and how to channel them for advocacy. So the conclusions that we drew through this small part of the research project was that career development practices are informed by theories and models. It's not separate. We don't study theories. I've had people say to me, career practitioners say to me, oh, I don't have time with my clients to teach them a theory. We don't expect you to teach your clients a theory, but we expect you to use those theories to underpin your work with clients, because that's what will guide the practices, the evidence-informed practices that you'll be using. We also recognized as we were reading these practice points and starting to work with them more closely, the importance of connecting assessment and interventions to social justice and social injustices. So recognizing that the very tools that we use can either exacerbate injustice or can create change and create a more just world for our clients. We also recognize the value of considering multiple approaches and different levels of intervention. As an instructor in a counseling psychology program, I have my students choose 2 chapters to apply to their own career, and then compare and contrast and ask themselves, was there value in integrating more than one model? And 100% of the time, they've found value in that. They've noticed things in looking at their careers through more than one lens that they wouldn't have noticed if they'd only applied one of the models or theories. So I think it's helpful for us, particularly when we're working with diverse clients who have different needs and are coming from different contexts, to recognize that there are multiple ways that we can work with these clients and multiple lenses through which we can understand the challenges that they're facing. And they're not all challenges that can be solved at an individual level. Many of the challenges our clients are facing are deeply systemic and need to be addressed through a social justice lens. We also recognized how these practice points can really be used to strengthen practices for us as professionals, and also for our clients. And so we just really encourage you and ask you to let theories and models be your guide as you move forward and unite your professional voices for social justice advocacy. So now I'll hand it back, I believe, to Nancy.
Okay. Our slides do not, oh, there, just seem to have a bit of a pause going between slides. Well, Roberta and Mary have summarized the nature of our research project and our highlight on the results pertaining to social justice advocacy. And this is just one small part of our preliminary results for this project. So for reflection questions, just to give you something to think about, as you were going through you're listening to the slides today, I was wondering, in your practice context, wherever you're working, whatever your role is, how are you addressing issues of social injustice that influence people's career development? We will inevitably come face to face with issues of social injustice in our roles. And our presentation today is to encourage us to really lean into taking responsibilities for advocating in the ways that we can with our professional power, with our professional knowledge, to try to work not only directly with our clients, but also to influence the systems that surround individuals and communities. So we also would encourage you to reflect about how you might use theories and models to inform social justice advocacy. Now, I want to clarify, we did not ask our chapter authors to specifically address the topic of social justice or social injustice. But what we noticed was the growing attention being paid in contemporary theories and models to those topics. We noticed that when we asked authors to provide us with a unique case vignette with each of the chapters, that they wrote in issues based on their experience and based on composites of client experience. And through this project, we noticed what practical advice they had to offer through practice points related to their theories and models. So we hope that you will use theories and models and the practice points that are derived from those theories and models to be useful resources for you. So I just want to end the presentation with a few acknowledgements. First of all, I'd like to thank CEREC, a Canadian-based organization, for sponsoring the original development of our edited collection, Queer Theories and Models that Work Ideas for Practice. I want to particularly thank our chapter authors. We started with a seed that grew into a small idea that grew into a big project, and we had such great collaboration from colleagues, more than 60 authors across multiple continents and countries. Your work brought this project to life. We've gone a step further with the research. I also want to acknowledge the people who have advocated about the importance of making career resources available to people whose language is not English. So this has been an important part of our project moving forward. The book is now available in the languages of French and Japanese and will be released later this year in 2 additional languages. So thank you very much for joining us today, for watching our video, and we look forward to joining you, those of you who are staying on for the live discussion. We'll see you in a few minutes, and we look forward to hearing from you about ways that you're connecting theories, models to practice, and particularly to social justice advocacy. Thanks to my colleagues, Mary and Roberta, for being such great collaborators for our project and for the presentation today. Goodbye now. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and thank you for our technical assistants in the background showing our video. We have a couple of minutes here and that we might take to address questions. So one of the questions that was posted, Seth, this is a really great question for us to think about. So you asked us, do we have some additional thoughts about overcoming the challenge that Roberta introduced? And that challenge was, I believe, sometimes students and sometimes practitioners perceive that there are barriers to implementing theory. So I'm gonna ask my colleague Mary to pitch in on this, but this is that's the very reason that we started this project, because we wanted to make theories and models, career theories and models, more accessible. And one of the things that was really important for us was to invite the chapter authors to draw links between the concepts behind their theories and models and what that meant for practice implications, so that people could have an idea of how they might suggest using their theory and model in practice. So I think it's offering examples. I think it's around producing materials that are actually easier to read, consume, and that offer case examples. So Mary, you might have some other comments in response to that question that you want to add.
Well, not a lot, Nancy. I think you've just about nailed it there. But I think that there's an onus on theorists and the developers of models to think that their process doesn't stop with the theory and model. it's a sort of a test of a good theory or model if it can be applied in practice and readily applied in practice. And practitioners don't have the advantages that theorists and the developers of models do, who often come out of academic institutions. So I think it's important for the theorist to think, well, if this is going to be really useful to people, other than offering an explanation of some aspect of career development, how will people who are just coming into the field, who are just trying to find their way in the field, how will they apply it? And I think it's about sort of going back to basics and saying, what are the key ways in which, you know, people can actually use and demonstrate this? And also thinking about perhaps who they could demonstrate it, who they could use it with, and in what settings it might work best. So I think there are challenges, and I think that the theorists and model developers themselves are well placed to provide a lot of guidance for practitioners. And I see that as being integral to developing the theory itself.
One of the other things that we did was offer some, we developed a kind of a tip sheet for ways to strengthen theory in the lives of practitioners. And they're just fun and practical ways of exploring theory. So for example, making a commitment to reading about a theory a month over the course of the year, revisiting a theory that you're familiar with to see what people are writing about it now, reading about a theory that is new to you, working with colleagues in case conferencing and looking at case conceptualization from different points of view, book clubs. So those are just some of the tips that we've introduced. There's a tip sheet on the CERIC website, that's CERIC. So we're trying to make the point that theory should be part of everyday practice, and we want theory to be very, very practical at the same time. So this is a way for us to make a small contribution in the field through not only the resource, but our subsequent research that's a look back on the book content to see what we can glean from the many perspectives of our authors. So thanks so much for your questions, Seth, and we're really pleased to be with you today. I'm just looking at one other comment that's come up. What does it say? All right, from Sana. I've done most of my theory developing and model building work when training practitioners workshop courses, just going over points with them, letting them experiment. Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's I think there's the science and the art of career development practice. So the science comes from the theoretical construction. It comes from the research and ways that theories have been tested. But the art is when we look at, oh, how could I use this? How could I apply this? How could I really make that theory or incorporate it into my repertoire of practice? That's the place that we can really experiment individually and through work with our colleagues. So I'm just looking at one more. Okay, that's from Seth, a response. So we're out of time. I don't want to take time from the next presenter. So thank you everyone for joining us. It's 1 o'clock in the morning where I'm calling in from now. So and I have an early morning. Well, it's early now, but a few hours of sleep, and then we'll be off to a paid role pretty soon. So thanks again, and to my colleagues Mary McMahon and Roberta Borgen for joining in the project, and to each of you who took the time to join our presentation. And from whatever time zone you are tonight. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, everybody.
And it's good night to you now. Good afternoon to everybody else, I hope. Yeah, awesome presentations. And I'm really, really proud to give you the third presentation of today's afternoon session. It is an honor for me to speak at the 44th EAEVG conference and present you the results of the Academia Plus project. Before I start my presentation, just a few words about my person. I studied business education at the University of Rostock in Germany, in Umeå in Sweden, and at the Humboldt University in Berlin, also in Germany. And I received my doctorate in economics from the University of Oldenburg in the north of Germany. I worked for several years at that university as a research assistant and then as a teacher for special tasks. And in 2017, I became professor for education, especially vocational and business education at the University of Applied Labor Studies in Schwerin. That's pretty far in the north of Germany. The University of Applied Labor Studies is the university for the Federal Employment Agency in Germany, and it's a pool for recruiting young talents and career guidance and counseling. And the Federal Agency or Federal Employment Agency in Germany has somehow 90,000 employees. So you see, it's a very big agency, and the University of Applied Labor Studies is giving studies in different programs that are very, very close to the labor market and are in a dual system. So they actually study 4 months at the university in that building you can see right behind me. And then they go 4 months into their agencies and work with clients and work as counselors. So this is what I actually usually do, but I also worked in a project for career guides and counselors, and now I will start sharing my presentation. Okay, just one thing. All right, I hope you can see it now. If you don't see the presentation at the moment, just give me a sign. Okay. The Academia Plus project is a project for counselors and focuses on study and training exchange programs for key challenges of European labor markets and societies. I was the leader of the project together with my colleague Clinton Enoch, also working as a professor at the University of Applied Labor Studies. What I would like to present you today is the background of the project, and I would like to share a few words about the Academia Network, because our project idea was based on the idea of the Academia Network, which you probably know. And then I would like to give you some general information about the Academia Plus project, the project objectives, and I will present the results and products created throughout the project timeline. Okay, the idea before we applied for the project was to have a look at European labor markets and societies. And what you could see was, and you can still see it, is that the European labor market is in transition. And that we have a lot of social challenges and also employment challenges for European societies. You can recognize a very, very significant impact due to demographic change, to an older workforce, and you are able to see the need of more efficient and effective integration of migrants and refugees into European labor markets. Labor markets are becoming more international, more mobile, more flexible, and work is getting more volatile. There is a transformation of society into a society of information and knowledge. And we have far-reaching effects of future jobs. In Germany, we call it labor 4.0. And this is also changing the way people have to counsel their clients. So this leads to the fact that counselors must ensure that everyone has the means for lifelong counseling, which we just saw in the presentation before, and that they have extensive knowledge of the education, training, and guidance systems of European countries in their socioeconomic contexts. And this knowledge must be given to all guidance practitioners and is required of all guidance practitioners throughout Europe. As I said before, the Academia Plus project is based on the idea of the Academia Network, which is a program for guidance practitioners by guidance practitioners. And for more than 25 years, has been the only network in Europe of practitioners for practitioners in career guidance and counseling. And its main objectives are to elaborate European training programs for guidance practitioners, to strengthen the common cooperation on information and guidance issues, to promote the exchange, especially of best practices and methodologies among European guidance practitioners, and to support guidance practitioners in providing better information, guidance, and counseling on education and training opportunities in Europe. The overall aim is to build formal and informal networks across Europe. And based on that idea, we created the idea of the Academia Plus project. And we were trying to exploit the potential and raise the level of the Academia network, because we created a 3-year project. Duration was from December 2018, and it just finished in August this year. It was funded by the BMBF, Bundesministerium für Bildung und Forschung, the Ministry for Education and Research, with financial support from the EU program Erasmus+, within the framework of the program Erasmus+, KA2 Strategic Partnerships for Higher Education. The project management was at our side at the University of Applied Labor Studies of the Federal Employment Agency, but we weren't the only working in the project. We had great project partners. Aspire IGEN Group, the Opportunity Centre in Bradford, UK, Applied Vocational Psychology and Policy Research Unit from Luxembourg, the SPI, Sociedade Portuguesa de Inovação in Portugal, and Imundus, our IT partner from Lithuania. What were the project objectives? We had 2 perspectives in the project. We were trying to support and consolidate the exchanges and transnational trainings of counselors across Europe. So the idea of the Academia Network of a loose exchange program where guidance practitioners go to other countries once a year for a couple of days and get an overview about relevant topics and maybe have a field visit. We were trying to consolidate this and give them a topic-focused training. We developed those training units, implemented them, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to perform them online. But this gave us the possibility to have a transnational training for counselors, and not only across Europe, but also from non-EU countries. Our trainings were research-based, and we tried to link science, practice, and ideas from businesses by integrating experiences and expertise from different countries and institutions by inviting a whole bunch of speakers into our training. And we had a European integrative approach to address the challenges of the refugee crisis. That was our first topic. To address the challenges of the demographic change and to address the challenges by the topic of future jobs. So what did we do in the project? First of all, we created so-called C-steps, so Counselor Studies and Training Exchange Programs. Our first C-step focused on the topic counseling migrants and refugees, the second on future jobs, and the third on demographic change. We wrote an overall didactic framework and course units for all online training units we had, and we created all the training material needed to perform all those studies and exchange programs. And we had additional parts in the project, such the creation of a media center and digital learning environment, Moodle, and the creation of a web portal for participants, lecturers, and guidance practitioners. I will go into detail into this very points. As you can see here, C-Step 1, the first online training on the topic counseling migrants and refugees, had a bunch of preparatory work. We were lucky to build on the experiences of a former project at our university, the so-called seminar project. We analyzed all the material. The project actually created, developed, and implemented a course for higher education at universities on the topic migrants and refugees. We analyzed the material, we modified the material, wrote a didactic framework, keeping in mind that we were originally planning to have face-to-face training. So we created a framework for that and then had to adapt it to online training. And then we wrote descriptions of the course units. We gave all that into internal peer reviews and also into expert reviews, and wrote a report about all those reviews. The results of those reports went into modifications of all the course units. And actually, we implemented 4 units, 4 days, split onto 2 weeks in May and June last year. And the first unit focused on intercultural awareness. So we had a whole day of online training for the topic intercultural awareness. Our second unit, also a whole day, was about recognition and access to the labor market. The third unit about potential analysis and empowerment. And our fourth unit about specific support measures. And as I said before, we invited a lot of different speakers and also asked for feedback by the speakers and as well by the participants, which resulted into a report about the results of the evaluation and recommendations for a broad-scale implementation. Our second topic, future jobs, was a bit different because we didn't base our online training on a former project. Therefore, we had a literature review by all partner countries involved in this project. We wrote country reports about the literature reviews, and then out of all the 4 country reports, we wrote a transnational synthesis. We also had a quantitative online survey asking counselors and experts in Europe about challenges in their country regarding the topic of future jobs, about already existing programs, about topics in online training should cover so that they could learn more about how to counsel in regard of the topic future jobs. We also wrote a didactic framework, course unit descriptions, had an internal peer review process and an expert review process, and this led to review report. We implemented that online training, that 4-day transnational online training in March this year. Also again split onto 2 weeks. First unit was about Industry 4.0 and the impact on work. Second unit, challenges and opportunities for companies in Industry 4.0. Third unit, future trends. And the fourth unit about new skills and competencies regarding future jobs. We also had an evaluation process, which ended in a report and a document with recommendations for broad-scale implementation. And as you can see here, our third online training, 4-day transnational online training, had the same working steps. The process was the same: a literature review, country reports, transnational synthesis, a quantitative online survey, the didactic framework as a first result, the unit description as a second result out of the project work, and an internal and an external review process with modifications within the didactic framework and the descriptions. And in May, we were lucky to implement our 4 units to the topics: challenges of an older workforce, retraining in later life, realigning the expectations of the labor market, and multi-generational collaboration. And also wrote a report about evaluation and recommendations for broad-scale implementation. Just to give you a short insight into how many people actually participated in the online trainings. Since we had to switch to online training instead of face-to-face, we were in the position to open our program to non-EU countries, and we didn't have the problem of financing the mobilities. So therefore, we were lucky to have 47 participants from all different countries, as you can see here, for example, Denmark or Estonia, Greece, Italy, Lithuania, Poland, Slovenia, Spain. I don't want to mention every country, as you can read it here, plus 3 non-EU countries. And we had 16 different speakers and experts from different countries and institutions, and not only counseling institutions. Step 2, we had even more participants, 89 participants. We had a lot more countries represented during the online training. And we had 18 speakers throughout the 4 online training days. And for the last step in May, we had 70 participants, which is also quite a high number of participants for our online training and interactive online training. And as you can see, professional background from our participants was widespread. We had professional career counselors from local, governmental, non-governmental organizations, but also local private companies, psychological institutions, universities, refugee organizations, but we also had freelancers and students joining our program. What we did, we created a media center and learning environment out of all the training material we created throughout the online trainings. So on academiaplus.eu/Moodle/ you can find all our material. You will find 3 courses, as you can see here, 1 course for each online training. You can enter with a guest login and then choose the online training, the topic you would like to, and then you can see all 4 units with every presentation we had throughout the day, with video recordings from the lectures, with work assignments for individual and group work, but also work results as sample solutions. And we also integrated chat and discussion protocols and transcripts. There's always a folder with additional resources and material we researched throughout our literature review, or we found helpful throughout the training days. So this is available for all 3 C-steps for the next 4 years, if I'm informed correctly, with a guest login, so you don't have to have an account on Moodle. And our aim was to give participants the possibility to kind of remember or go back into detail into different presentations where we went through too fast, too quickly throughout the online trainings, but also to give people the possibility to, who didn't join, to recreate the whole program and to recreate the whole online training. Furthermore, as a third aim, we had the idea of participants being multiplier for the content and the methods and the online training we offer to them in their home countries and home institutions. And we actually know that there are 2 or 3 participants who will actually take the whole topic from one C-step and do some little modifications and then give the training as a lecture this time, and also to another target group, for example, at a university. Furthermore, we have a website, sure, and on that website you can find the output section where you have sure general information about the project, but also all reports we created. And what you will find is related or structured for every C-step, for every online training. You find the didactic framework, the unit descriptions, and if you scroll down on the website, which I don't want to do now, you also find the agenda per unit. So you actually have a timetable that we set and know how long should I take for presentation number 1? How long should I take for the group work? How long should I work on the individual reflection task, for example? And together with the didactic framework and unit descriptions, you can actually look which learning outcomes do we focus for each content, what are the methods, how should I use the method, which online tools should I use and how should I use them. So we actually give hints and support for the recreation of the whole training. Okay. That was about it. So my presentation was kind of a promotion for the results of our project, because we really, really got the feedback that it's essential to focus on challenges that aren't just challenges on a national level, but on a transnational level, that there are challenges which all countries have to focus in a different way, but that we can actually learn from each other's attempts to face those challenges, and that exchange is one thing, exchange of experiences and so on, but combined with input presentations on those different topics, we actually gain a higher professional level for career guides and counselors. So feel free to use our material and to log in, and also feel free to contact us through academiaplus.info@gmail.com. All right.
Hello, Jane. Thanks so much for that. It was really interesting, and you did a power of work there, and I think it's very generous of you to make all those resources available. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. You know, I've been working in the university sector and the further education sector for almost 15 years now. And my impression always was that there are so many people working so hard on professional programs or on workshops. And since we don't know from all these workshops, which we can't, obviously, we have to, there's a German saying, we have to recreate the wheel every time new. I don't know, it's not properly translated, I guess, but we have to build from scratch every time again, because I don't know what you are doing and you don't know what I'm doing. And this takes so many resources and this takes so much time. And oh, it's great, Sana, that you have the same expression in Finnish. So this was the reason why we actually said, okay, well, there are so many experts out there, and we were in the lucky position to get some of them. And yeah, inventing the wheel. And they gave their input where they are specialists for. And we were in the lucky position to video record it and to upload all those presentations. And then we thought, well, but not everybody is able to join an online training. And why not share it with other people? And then they can be educated a bit more, because what I experienced, I've been working for the HTVA for 4 years now, as I said, for the University of Applied Labor Studies. So career guidance and counseling is one of my topics for 4 years now. And what I experienced is that we don't have like a European university for career guides and counselors where we actually have a combined programs, bachelor and master studies, for example. It's all up to the countries or even to the regions. And it depends on the people, if there is a good program or not, for example. Okay, I will have a look into the chat. It's great if you share. Feel free to share. And is it more suitable for career practitioners working in schools or with adults? Thank you. I would say it depends on the topic. The third C step, which deals with demographic change, but especially with an older workforce. We had 4 units and 3 of them focused on an older workforce. I would say this is not a perfect match for practitioners working in schools, but the topic future jobs, artificial intelligence, which jobs will be removed pretty soon, which jobs will be taken over by robots or not, what are needed skills and competencies in the future. I think this is also for practitioners working in schools, as well as for practitioners working with adults, I think. And I don't know how the situation in all the different countries represented here is, but my experience was from the first C-step, counseling migrants and refugees, that we have in every country widespread age of migrants and refugees. So it's suitable for both. For those career practitioners working in schools, as well for those working with adults, because the migrants and refugees coming to Germany have all different kind of ages. All right. There are 2 minutes left, so we could have one more question, I would say. And if there are no other questions, it's a pleasure for me to end this session, and yeah, wish you all the best for your work, and hope we will see each other in a different context again. All right.